Emily to Gremily here with another solo episode. And I'm really excited for this episode. Actually, I say that about every episode, I feel like, but it's true. I'm always excited about my episodes. This one was a lot of fun to put together, though. I'll talk about that in 1 second. Real quick, I want to welcome any new listeners and welcome back all returning listeners. Thanks for tuning in. Episode Drink of the Week. I am a little crazed. I need energy to get me through my days, and especially today because I got a lot going on. So this is it's cherry twist. I'm almost positive. I don't know why I question myself and don't look at it like right before I start filming. I'm almost positive it's cherry twist Alani. It's that beautiful color that I always rave about. I put it over ice in a wine glass to romanticize my life and pretend like I'm having a cocktail, even though I'm not. Soon, soon, soon. So yeah, cherry twist, I believe, Alani, because I need all the help I can get today. Okay, and today's episode, I put together all of your submissions for WWGD, What Would Gremily Do? I had a lot of submissions. This episode is going to have the most submissions ever compiled into one episode. It's not going to be extremely long because a lot of the scenarios that were submitted to me were like all of the same like theme almost. And I didn't want to read each individual one and have the same answer. So I kind of grouped those together, but it's a good mix of them. Let me read to you the email that inspired this episode, which was from Leah. Her original email read, "Hi, Emily. I'm one of your German listeners. While I grew up in the United States, I have lived in Germany for 3 years. I have an idea for a possible episode you could do. I would love to hear an episode, WWGD. What would Gremily do? Selfishly, it is because I have a question that would perfectly fit this theme. I thought maybe it would be too similar to Gremlin guidance, but I feel you somewhat hold back on your advice out of consideration to others' feelings. You give options on how to handle situations. This would simply be, if you yourself were in the situation, what would you personally do? Alles Liebe, Leah." I still hope I'm saying that correctly. I'm not sure. But Leah, thank you for that email. You kicked off an entire episode. Again, the most submissions I've had for one episode to date. Super exciting. But I didn't want to forget anyone, so I will be reading multiple names for each scenario. Well, not each scenario, but the scenarios that had multiple people asking the same question. Also, I divided these into phases of life because that's just kind of the way it worked out. And you know me, I like to have my organization. So let's just get started with this. Let's see. Okay, so the first category, I just titled it miscellaneous. I was thinking about putting this at the end, but I figured let's start out like kind of on a fun note almost. Because some of these are a little like more serious. I'll try to make them a little, more fun, I guess. But, what can we do? Okay, the first submission under miscellaneous is from Ellie. Ellie asks, have you ever met a Karen out in public? If so, what did you do? And if not, what would you do? Ellie. Okay, so I've never really personally encountered a Karen. I really love, I don't know why, I feel like this sounds really toxic. I really love watching Karen videos on TikTok, but I only like watching them if there is like a solution at the end, or if like the Karen is being like, not harassed. Harassed is the wrong word. Like people are like calling her out, like, or him. It doesn't have to be a woman. But I really like if there's like a solution at the end of it, like the Karen gets like put in their place almost. I don't like to see like a Karen harass someone and then just like get away with it. I like there to be a follow-up or an outcome. I feel like the videos I'm seeing a lot more frequently nowadays are the Karens on like airplanes, and then the whole entire crowd has to deplane and you see the Karen getting arrested. Or I feel like I see a lot of those. It's a lot of airport Karens. I was trying to think of this. I couldn't decide if this should be listed as a Karen or not. So I'll just tell the story and I'll let you guys kind of come to your own conclusion. So I was at the grocery store. This was maybe like 2 years ago, I guess, 2-ish years ago. I don't know. Even my sense of time is like not even a thing anymore. It could have been a year ago. Who knows? When I usually walk around the grocery store, I have my AirPods in or my headphones on just because I'm antisocial, I guess. But I was headed towards the produce section of the grocery store. And even though I had my AirPods in, I heard this lady start to like yell and not like scream like they were in trouble, like literally yell at somebody, like screaming, "Get away from me!" Like, just like, it was insane. It was so quick, and I didn't catch it fully because I wasn't paying attention. I had my AirPods in, but I took them out because I was like, what's going on? And it was a very elderly lady, like your typical old lady, like she's got the blue hair kind of thing. And she was screaming at a younger black man. And he had his headphones on, like he had like the big headphones, like the Beats. And he just like, you could see his shock on her face. I don't know if she thought he was trying to take her purse. I don't know. You could tell this guy was minding his own business, wasn't interacting with her. It was because he walked near her shopping cart where her purse was. So she's obviously drawing her own conclusions. And she had walked away from her cart. She left her cart like in the middle of the aisle, which is one of my biggest pet peeves. Young, old, like, why are you leaving your cart right in the middle of the freaking aisle? That happens a lot at Costco. Even though I love Costco, that happens all the time. Anyway, tangent. And so she, everyone has to walk around her cart, him included, and she's screaming at him. Luckily, there was a security guard like right there because the entrance and exit was near the produce section. So he walked over right away. There wasn't any need for any intervention of like us customers because the security guard calmed her down. The guy was shocked. Like, he just looked around at everybody and everyone was just like standing there. Like, I feel like we were all kind of standing around just in case she was gonna pull some kind of Karen, like pull the race card, do something that was really like abhorrent. So she never did. She just grabbed her cart and shuffled away. And he just like looked around and everyone was like, don't worry, like no worries about it. That was the only time I've ever seen a Karen in person. And I don't know whether to classify that as a Karen because she didn't take it any further. She just screamed because her purse was not right next to her. Yeah, that's the only thing that's happened. But I do wonder what I would do in that kind of situation. Because I'm kind of one of those people. I don't know if I should say this or not, but I feel like I sometimes freeze. Like, it takes me a second to process like what I just saw and what I heard. Like, when I saw that lady screaming, I stood there and like looked at her and looked at the guy because I was trying to process like, what the hell just happened? I'd like to think I'd have a little more like fight in me and I'd stop somebody from doing something because I know right from wrong. And this lady was clearly in the wrong and she was a little nutty cuckoo. But I've never encountered someone like that personally. No one's ever tried me like that. I hope they never do. And I hope I never have to find out. But I would like to think, well, what would I do? I'd like to think I would have the wherewithal and the ability to like speak my mind and quickly say like, hey, knock it off or stop harassing this person. I'd like to think I could do that, but I'm not 100% sure. So yeah, that's my answer. Now I'm kind of worried about leading with this question. I feel like maybe I should have switched it around, but oh well. Okay, this question is from Mary, Ricky, Tia, and Georgia. And they ask, what would you do if you saw someone who had food in their teeth? Okay, it's circumstantial. If I know the person, I'll just tell them. Like, I'll be like, hey, you got something like right here, and just like tell them. If I don't know you, I'm not going to say anything. And I don't know if that makes me a bad person or not. I hope it doesn't. But it's just like, it'd be so awkward for like a rando to go up to you and be like, hey, you got like schmutz in your teeth. So I just wouldn't. But if I know you and you're my friend, or at least an acquaintance, or, you know, somebody I've had multiple conversations with, I would say something. But if you're just like random guy right here, I wouldn't say anything. Okay, perfect example. When I had to go to the Apple store, the guy who is one of the genius guys, or are they the genius bar or is the geek squad? I think they're the genius bar. Whatever. I think my ADHD is like kicking in today because I'm going all over the place. Um, the genius bar guy, he had stuffs in his teeth, and I wasn't going to say anything to him. I just wanted him to fix my computer, and he did. But I wasn't going to say like, "Hey, I think you just came back from lunch and you have stuffs in your teethers." So I didn't tell him. But if I knew him, I would say something. I hope that doesn't make me a shitty person, but oh well. Okay, next one is from Macy. Macy asks, what would you do if you were in a grocery checkout line and the person in front of you didn't have enough to cover their bill? Okay, if I had the means to help them, I would just like pay the difference. I don't think it's that big of a deal. Now, if it was like $100, then no, because, you know, it's not like I'm rolling in the dough right now at the moment. But if I had the ability and the means to help someone else out financially, then I absolutely would. You know, I've been there before. I remember when I first moved out, like on my own, I got like really into couponing. I was like, you know, 18, 19 years old. And I went to like a Ralph's or a Vaughn's, wherever, and I checked out and I thought I had done my math properly. And apparently I didn't. And I was like, I don't know, a few dollars short of the amount. And I was so embarrassed. And I was like, crap. So I'm like really quickly trying to tell the cashier, like, oh, just take this, this, and this off. And the guy who was behind me said he would pay the difference. It was like, I don't know, like maybe less than $3. So I was always appreciative of that. I would just help someone out if I had the ability to. Yeah. Hopefully that makes up for the fact I wouldn't tell a random person if they have food in their teeth. Okay, and the next category is dating. The first one is anonymous. And I almost felt like some of these were a little bit of guidance, but you submitted them as what would Gremily do, so we are going to discuss it as such. All right. What would you do if you found out your boyfriend had kids he did not tell you about? More specifically, you've been dating the man for 6 months and find out he has 2 kids aged 5 and 2. Anonymous. Okay. So I feel, I don't know. Now I'm worried I'm going to come across as like so terribly rude. I personally, at this moment in time, phase of my life, would not date someone who has kids. Now, maybe that would change in the future. I don't want to like say something and have it come back and bite me in the ass. But I would not want to date someone with kids. Now, if it's been a couple of dates and I find out they have kids, I wouldn't be really stoked. But 6 months into a relationship, you're calling this guy boyfriend, he's calling you girlfriend, you've been together 6 months, and then you find out he has kids. I would immediately start questioning what else he's not telling me. I would stop trusting him and I would break up with him. That's just that. I would immediately think like, okay, well, what's the reason he didn't tell me? What's the deal with the baby mama? Is it his ex-girlfriend? Is it his ex-wife? Was he married before? Does he have more kids he's not telling me about? It would just be the biggest red flag to hide something that significant for 6 months that I would just immediately cut it off. You know, like, good to know ya. I'm moving on. Again, I'm like starting to worry that I'm coming across as like a bitch. But whatever, it's fine. Sometimes I am. I feel like some people who just heard me say sometimes are saying to themselves, it's not sometimes, it's always. Okay, next question is from Leslie. What would you do if you moved in with your boyfriend and found out he's not as neat and tidy as you thought? Leslie. Okay, so this is a little harder for me to say because I know I have OCD. I have very high expectations on how I want my space to be organized. And that's my problem. It's nobody else's burden to bear. This is on me. So if this is just like an organization issue, I would personally I take over the organizing. Now, my boyfriend is an organized guy. He likes everything to be clean. He's not messy. I really lucked out with that one. But when it comes to like putting stuff away, I'm a little particular. And we've just kind of come up with a system that like, if we go to the grocery store, we do a Costco haul, when we come home, I'm the one that's putting everything away. Not because he's lazy and doesn't want to, but because I don't want him to touch it, because I want to do it myself and put it away the way I think it should be put away. Like, for example, one time we did a big Costco haul. I was putting stuff away in the kitchen and I went to look for one of the boxes that we had brought home and it was missing. And I asked him where it was and he was like, oh, it had all the toiletry stuff in it. I put that away. And he meant well. He really did. But I was like, oh no. So I went to go look and I felt like a real big bitch because I immediately took out everything he put away. And he was like, oh, like, what's wrong? Like, what did I do? I was like, you didn't do anything wrong. You just didn't do it the way I want it to be done. And I'm just going to put it away the way I think it should be put away. Because he put everything under the sink in our bathroom and we need to have certain things under the sink in our bathroom and certain things under the sink in the guest bathroom. And it's just like, in my head, it makes sense. And for him, it doesn't. And that's okay. But now we've just come to the decision that when it comes to putting things away or organizing, that I'm the one that's taking charge and doing it and then just letting him know where everything is. So that's what I would do. I would just take over the organizing of everything, because nobody's going to do it the way you want it to be done. And I don't want to make it his problem that I want things done a certain way, you know? So I just take over. I also have control issues too. A lot of my issues are coming to the forefront in this episode. All right. The next question is from Anonymous. Anonymous asks, what would you do if the man you were dating, but not exclusive with, was dating someone else and wasn't sure who he wanted to commit to? Anonymous. All right. I've said this before. I'll say it again. I am so uninterested in anyone who doesn't see my value and my worth. And I need, if I'm going to be dating someone and like be serious with someone, actually not even serious, I just like romantically interested in, they need to be like obsessed with me. That's just my standard. I have high standards. If you're not obsessed with me, I'm so uninterested in you. And if you can't see how great I am, then you're blind and I'm not your seeing eye dog. So toodaloo. Like if somebody doesn't want to be with me and I feel like I have to like beg them for exclusivity or commitment or attention, like I don't even want it at that point. That's the way I am. It's all fun and games and cool to like date around, and you know, if you're not exclusive with the person, then they can date who they want, you can date who you want. But if it starts turning into like a love triangle, ugh. I love watching that in movies. I refuse to ever live that in real life. Like, no. It's obsession or nothing. That's my philosophy on dating. Again, I feel like a lot of my issues are coming forefront. Okay. The next category is going to be weddings. I think this was the category I had the most submissions for. Also, I did add a little bit of a disclaimer that I wanted to say beforehand. So some of these submissions, I ended up grouping a lot of the same submissions together because they were kind of pretty much saying the same thing. But a few of the submissions felt like guidance questions as well. So I saved those. They'll be answered today in this episode, but I did save the very specific emails to be answered in a guidance episode because I felt like some of them needed specialized attention. So I'm giving like generalized attention in these answers, but I'll give like specific attention to the emails in a future episode. So just wanted to say that real quick. Let's see. The first question is actually from the inspiration for this episode, Leah. Leah asks, what would you do if your parents were trying to take over your wedding plans? When I was getting married, my parents figured since they were chipping in for the wedding, they would be able to have final say over guest list, decor, venue, and all the little things. WWGD. Also, this question was shared and submitted by Tamra, Michelle, Victoria, Margot, Celeste, Mason, and Isabel. Okay, so again, my control issues are coming forefront. If this is my wedding, then it's my wedding. I understand there's a groom involved. Don't have to remind me. But it's our wedding. But just because like parents or whoever are financially chipping in, I don't like money that has strings attached to it. Like, we're going to give you this, but this is how you have to spend it. I don't like that. I think it's toxic. I think that's really controlling. So me wanting to have control over my own wedding, I don't think is that far-fetched and like that insane of an idea. And each situation is different because every family dynamic is different. What I would personally do is tell them that while I appreciate them chipping in because they are my parents and family, they're not going to be having final say over anything. To have like final say on decor and venue, and all, she even says all the little things. Absolutely not. Like, this is my wedding. I understand you're chipping in, but no, like, I would just be extremely adamant. I was talking about this with Jay the other day. We were discussing like a problem that is being had. I don't know how else to say that. But she was giving her side of what she thinks she would do, and I gave my side of what I think I would do. And we came to the realization that I am just very cut and dry. It's this way. This is how we're going to do it. And that is that. Like, I am very meticulous, planned out. Now, what I will say is like for weddings, even though I have not myself walked down the aisle, I did plan a wedding. And wedding planning is a pain in the ass and kind of a bitch. So it's always nice to have suggestions and ideas from other people. But at the end of the day, like, this is a very big day in your life. And I think the bride and the groom, mostly the bride, should have final say on how the money is being spent and where the wedding's taking place, the bridesmaids' dresses, the table decor, the guest list. If I don't want someone at my wedding, they're not going to be at my wedding. Plain and simple. Like, easy peasy, lemon squeezy. I'm extremely cut and dry. It's this way and no other way. Plain and simple. So it wouldn't really be much of a discussion as opposed to me just making a statement and leaving it at that. But I understand that sounds a little harsh. Okay, the next question is from Anonymous. Anonymous asks, what would you do if you were in a wedding and the maid of honor is extremely rude and demanding? Okay. I really wish I knew the dynamics of this because I, again, feel like this is one of the more personal ones. So I think, like I just said, I'm very cut and dry, but I'm also very non-confrontational. I don't want to confront someone if I don't have to. I'll avoid it as much as I possibly can. So I think that if it's like affecting the mood of the entire bridal party and negatively affecting the bride, then I think I would maybe have a conversation with the other bridesmaids and or the bride to discuss the issue at hand and how to resolve it. But if I'm the only one to be having an issue with this, I honestly would just let it go and just like suffer in silence because it's not my wedding. I'm not the maid of honor, and I want to be supportive and there for the bride, and I wouldn't want to cause drama. So I would just kind of suck it up if it was only affecting me. But if it was like a group consensus that this lady is just absolutely horrific, then I would try to come to some kind of like conflict resolution with the least amount of drama. Because even though I love to watch drama and like love the gossip, I don't want to like create this issue in the bridal party, especially on what's supposed to be the bride's like happiest day. And again, wedding planning is stressful and there's so many moving parts, and you don't want to be one of the stressful parts. As a bridesmaid, you're there to help and have fun and create an exciting vibe for the bride. So I would try to bite my tongue as much as possible. And yeah, just make sure like the overall mood of the wedding and the wedding party is happy. That's what I would do. Okay, the next one is also anonymous. Anonymous asks, what would you do if you were a bridesmaid in a wedding but couldn't afford all the activities? Okay, another thing about weddings is they're really, really expensive. And I feel like if you're the bride, of course you want your bachelorette trip and your bridal shower and your this and your that to be as nice as possible. But some people do have financial reservations, and I think all of that needs to be taken into account. If it's not being taken into account, and money's always such a touchy subject to talk about, I don't like talking about money. But if I was in the position where I couldn't afford it, I would just really simply say, even though it's really uncomfortable and kind of embarrassing, I would just say like, hey, I want to be there for every part of the planning process and all the activities, but due to this or that, I'm not going to be able to. So I'm going to come to as much as I possibly can and possibly can afford. And hopefully the bride is understanding of that. And if the bride isn't understanding of that, then I think that's a separate issue. So yeah, that's what I would do. Okay, and this next one was submitted by Jenny, Sage, Samantha, Claudia, Sabrina, and Paige. What would you do if someone wore white to your wedding? Okay, I wouldn't be happy about it, but I think part of like my control issues is that I've realized that I can't control everything. And while it's normal decorum to not only adhere to a dress code, but it's also basic knowledge to not wear white to a wedding, I can't force someone to not wear white. So I would not let it ruin my day. I wouldn't have someone throw red wine at the lady. I would just, life would go on. There's bigger things to worry about. I would just let it go. That person would not be getting an invitation to anything else ever again. And she would be on my shit list forever. And believe you me, I'd be talking shit about her and gossiping afterwards. But the day of, I would just, be like, whatever. Like, what can we do? We can't send her home to change. I'm not going to ruin her dress. I'm not going to have it ruin my day. We just got to let it go, have fun, because the day is so much bigger than what one person is wearing. So I would forgive it. I would just be like, whatever. But I wouldn't forget. She would never be invited to anything ever again. And I'd make sure afterwards to let it be known or let it get back to her that she wore white to my wedding and I was not amused. But the day of, I just let it go. Okay, the next category is baby or babies. Okay, so there's only really one question in this, but I kind of divided it into two. Submitted by Marty, Sheila, Alexandra, Joe, Sydney, Elizabeth, and Lizzie. They asked, what would you do if someone was going to use the same baby name as you? Also submitted by Emily, a fellow Emily, not me, but another Emily. Emily said, my cousin and I are both first-time moms, pregnant with our baby girls. She is due in May, and I am due in August. She announced the name of her baby already and will be naming her after our grandmother, a name I've had my heart set on since I was a little girl. What would you do in this situation? Signed, Emily. So the kind of the same question, but one's a little more like specific. Okay. I feel like I've talked about this before on the podcast, but I am a little precious with the baby names I have chosen for my non-existent children. And I don't know if I'm ever going to have kids and be able to use these names, but I haven't even told my partner the names that I have had picked for years and years and years. because they're precious to me. I'm gatekeeping them. I don't gatekeep anything. Absolutely anything at all. Like, if you like my outfit, I'll tell you where I got it and how much it cost. If you like my perfume, I'll tell you what it is. I don't like to gatekeep. I don't think that's cool. But I'm gatekeeping my names because one of them is very obscure. Not so obscure that there's nobody else in the entire planet named this, but it's a very rare name. The other couple that I have, they're not as obscure. They just have a little more meaning behind them. So, and okay, let me tell you the trauma I have with this as well before I fully answer this question. I'm trying to think of how I can say this without it being extremely specific. There was someone in my life in the past who, this person and I, we had discussed baby names, talked about our favorite baby names, this or that. And okay, I'm going to have to say it just because there's no other way around it. There was this guy I was dating long time ago who we had discussed baby names. And we weren't even at that point in our lives or even our personal situation where we would ever have a baby. He brought it up, and I, like discussing names, and I was like, fuck it. Like, I'll discuss it. Like, I love, thinking about fake situations. So we had talked about baby names, and I specifically said I liked a specific name that I would use on a kid if him and I had one together, because this name had a special meaning to him and I. Like, it was like something special we shared. I'm not going to say what it is. So obviously him and I don't work out. And, sometime later I see that he's announces that he's going to have a baby. And I was, excited for him. I was like, oh, that's good. He's always wanted a baby. That's why he was bringing up baby names, back then. Always wanted a baby, always wanted to be a dad. So, good for him. And then he announces the birth of the child. And I was on Instagram. So I was looking at it, I was reading the caption, and this bastard stole my name. And I'm like, there's no way that name has any meaning between you and your baby mama. So he just remembered the name that I said and used it. And I'm like, does his girlfriend even know that I'm the one that came up with that name? And like, he didn't read it in a baby name book. That's for damn sure. I was just like so annoyed. And I wasn't ever going to like reach out to him and like say, hey, you stole my baby name. Because at the end of the day, was I going to use that name? No. Would I want to use it right now? No, because it was only a name I would use with him. It was just the fact that he stole it. And I was so like perturbed by that. And I was like, he stole my goddamn baby name. It was, as you can see, it still bugs me. But anyway, so that's why I'm precious with the baby names I have chosen now that have since changed since way back when. So as far as Emily, our fellow Emily here, saying that her cousin is going to use the name she's had her heart set on since she was a little girl. I feel for you because I never had to share my Nana because my my mom is an only child and I'm an only child. So there's nobody else there's no cousins out there who could have used her name before I ever had the chance to. And if they did, I would be annoyed. But you don't have claim on the name. And if you really wanted to, you could also name your baby the same thing. I mean, why not? So if I were you and I were in that situation, I would debate heavily on also using the name. But it's more likely that I wouldn't. And I would probably use it as a middle name. Just to still, pay respect to your grandmother, I would probably use the name as a middle name and find a new first name. But if it's also like, look, my name is Emily and your name is Emily as well. And also in the submission of what would you do if someone was going to use the same baby name as you, we have an Elizabeth and a Lizzie. I'm assuming they're both Elizabeth. there's so many people out there with our same name. So it's not like, the year I was born in 1993, it was the number one baby girl name of 93. Like, I say it all the time. Like, I wish my mom would have had an original thought, because, like, Jesus Christ, you know how many Emilys I've met in my 32 years of life? So there's just so many people in the world that if cousins have the same name, it's not really that big of a deal. What I would personally do is I would probably switch the name to the middle name and come up with a new first name. Would it sting a little bit? Yes, but you can't have claim on the name. Maybe she's felt the same way. She's had her heart set on that since she was a little girl. So I would just have to give it up. And she's having her baby first. If you were having your baby first, I would tell you, just take the name and tell her to figure it out. But she's having her baby first. That's what I would do. Again, I'm precious with baby names, but it's funny. I do have a friend who is having a baby, which I'm really excited about because I'm going to be an auntie. But she was telling me that her and her partner, they have decided on a name, but her partner was being a little, I don't know if it was like superstitious or just secretive. He doesn't want to reveal the name of the baby until the baby is born. And I told her I kind of agree with him, because you never know. What if, not that anyone actually could, but like, what if someone swoops in and steals the name? I don't know. And I was like, what if, when you have the baby, you're holding said baby in your arms and you're like, wait, hold on, the name doesn't fit anymore. It doesn't feel right. What if you completely change your mind and you've already announced it that you want it to be this particular name and you switch it to a different one? So I told her I think she should wait. I don't know what she's planning on doing, but yes, I'm very excited for that baby to be born because I'm going to smother it in love. I'm very, very excited for that. So yeah, that's my baby story. That's my name. That's what I would do for the names. Again, I don't know if I'm ever going to use my names. I don't know if I'm ever going to have kids or be a mom, but I am taking those names with me. They belong to me. I'm being particular about it. And that's my prerogative. Again, all of my issues are coming real forefront in this episode. But that is the end of the episode, so I will stop oversharing. If you would like to follow myself and the podcast on social media, you may do so on Instagram and TikTok at Emily to Gremily Pod. You can also watch this episode and almost all the past episodes on YouTube at Emily to Gremily Pod on YouTube. If you have your own gremlin story, unique gremlin guidance, or you have a juicy piece of gremlin gossip, you may email in your submissions to emilytogremilypod at gmail.com. Also, I already put out a call to action on this, and I was shocked by the immediate response I received. Last episode, I said within that episode, I had 3 submissions that were worst first dates. And so I put it out there. If you guys have any worst first date stories or just worst date stories, to submit those in and I could make it an episode. It's going to be next week's episode. You guys, like, I check my email every single day. When I checked my email the next day after that episode aired, I was shocked by the influx of messages I received. I was like, oh my God. And I'm searching through them, and there were some, guidance gossip stories that were in there, but there were a lot of first date stories. So that is next week's episode. Worst first dates. If you haven't submitted your story, submit that in at emilytogremilypod@gmail.com. Or if you want, you can message or DM me on Instagram or TikTok. So that will be airing next week, Tuesday, March 24th. Also, the week after that, it is going to be the 1-year anniversary episode, and that will be airing Tuesday, March 31st. I still don't know what I'm doing for that episode. I have some ideas, but if you have your own ideas, please submit those in emilytogremilypod@gmail.com or message or DM me on socials. I want that to be a fun episode, a unique episode, but I'm not 100% sure what to do. I got to really gather my thoughts with this and create something that's worthy of 1 year birthday, basically. So next week, worst first dates, make sure to email those in ASAP. It will be filmed this week. As you're hearing this right now, it will be filmed in a couple of days. So you need to email those in as soon as possible. But there were so many submissions, it might become a series. Otherwise, it's going to be one extremely long episode. So send those in, emilytogramleypod@gmail.com. And make sure to like, follow, share, subscribe, rate 5 stars, do all the things. We're going to cheers out with our cherry twist, Alani. Cheers to you, cheers to me, cheers to hopefully all my issues not scaring everybody away. And cheers to the pregnant Emily. I hope you have a very happy and safe pregnancy and delivery. And in August, you have your beautiful baby girl, and the name debacle will just all be in the past, and no worries at all. Cheersies. Bye.